Shri Haraya Namaha. A common propaganda we may have been hearing since decades is that life was unfair for Karna and Ekalavya in the Mahaabharata. Karna was denied education by Dronacharya and he had to go to Bhagavan Parashurama to obtain knowledge of the Brahmastra by lying that he was a Brahmana. Later, he was cursed when Parashurama found out the truth about his Varna. At Draupadi's Swayamvara, Karna was about to succeed in winning the challenge and marrying Draupadi, but because Draupadi was a casteist, she rejected him due to his so-called low birth. Similarly, Ekalavya was also denied education due to being from a low caste because he was a Nishada. And still, while he learnt archery on his own with bhakti towards Dronacharya, Dronacharya finally asked him for his thumb as an offering to prevent him from becoming better than Arjuna. Our school textbooks and most articles on the internet would have fed us these allegations numerous times. But what does the original source of these stories, namely the Mahabharata, mention about this matter? We shall find out. First, we must know the identities of Karna and Ekalavya properly. Karna's father was a Suta, who is a child of a Kshatriya man and a Brahmana woman. Sutas were Dvijas and had the rights to learn even the Vedas and underwent the samskaras like Upanayana. Sutas were primarily charioteers and warriors, and they were actually considered superior to Vaishyas, as remarked by even Sri Madhvacharya in the Mahaabharata Tattvavada Nirnaya. In fact, Sanjaya and Yadu themselves were Sutas, the same Yadu whose descendants were Sri Krishna, Sri Balarama, Vasudeva, and all the other Vrishnis. Similarly, Vidura himself was a Shudra, but he became a learned scholar, a Vidwan. Do we have to even mention that Sutas were a type of Kshatriyas and were never denied education at all in the first place? In the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata itself, it is explained how Vidura was actually Yama himself, who was cursed and took birth as a Shudra. But though he was a Shudra, he still became a Vidwan and a Dharmika person, and Sanjaya was also born as the son of a Suta. The same has been mentioned even by Sri Madhvacharya. Now, coming to the eligibility of education in ancient India, the truth is the Shastras are very explicitly clear that all, regardless of Varna, are entitled to receive education of the Shastras and multiple other skills. The only Shastras restricted were the Vedas due to their complexity and the requirement that only Dvijas, that is, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas who have had Upanayana could study them. However, literally all other Shastras, be it the Itihasas, Puranas, Agamas, Smritis, Upavedas, were never restricted on the basis of Varna. Those who are interested in learning are Bhagavad Bhaktas and have the qualities of a good student are always entitled to learn them. We shall also release a detailed video on this topic. The link shall be in the description. Coming back to the Mahabharata, Vidura himself, who was a Shudra, had the knowledge of multiple Shastras as well as skills like Dhanurveda. As quoted already, he himself was a Vidwan, a scholar. Where is the question of someone who is a Suta being ineligible to learn anything at a Gurukula? And for this reason, the Mahabharata itself says that Karna was very much a disciple of Dronacharya. It was Karna who was a Nicha and always misused knowledge to trouble the Pandavas due to jealousy. So, he actually did not even deserve the knowledge he was receiving in the first place. When he demanded the knowledge of the Brahmastra, Dronacharya did not provide it to him as he was not a Kshatriya and there was no need for him to possess such weapons, with his evilness already being evident till then. And Ekalavya was similarly rejected as he was a Nishada and his father was a chief of the army of Jarasandha, who was an enemy king of Hastinapura. Nonetheless, Ekalavya learnt archery by himself and was using whatever little knowledge he had to torment other beings and showed his evil nature. Thus, the Pandavas and Dronacharya felt that he was a threat who would actually cause harm to the world, which is why Dronacharya demanded his thumb to be severed and reduced his adharmic influence. But despite all this, Dronacharya still felt the need to provide knowledge to Ekalavya because of his Guru Bhakti, and he still provided knowledge of certain special weapons to him due to his sacrifice. And indeed, the irony is that most people still believe that Dronacharya was a selfish-minded casteist. Coming to the so-called insult of Karna at Draupadi Devi's Swayamvara, this too is another bluff being taught and peddled by anti-Hindu agents. As a matter of fact, except select few editions of the Mahabharata, literally none of the most ancient ones nor the commentaries or quotations by ancient scholars mention anything as such. Karna simply failed in stringing the bow during Draupadi's Swayamvara. The same has been quoted by Sri Madhvacharya too in the 19th Adhyaya of the Mahaabharata Tatparya Nirnaya. In fact, Yudhishthira himself mentions that there was no mention of any restriction on the basis of dynasty, Varna, Gotra, etc. with regard to Draupadi's Swayamvara at all in the first place. Yudhishthira remarks this when Arjuna goes forward in the disguise of a Brahmana and there was a question as to how a non-Kshatriya could attempt to marry Draupadi. Na tatra varneshu krita viviksha na chapi shile na kule na gotre. Therefore, the mention of Karna being rejected by Draupadi is a mere interpolation in some of the manuscripts of the Mahabharata. Coming to the truth about Karna, Karna himself was a Paramanicha who was the most casteist and frequently abused Vidura for being a Shudra. He even felt happy all the time at the suffering of the Pandavas, which he himself mentions on multiple occasions. In the following passage from the Vanaparva, Karna himself advises Duryodhana to feel happy to look at the Pandavas suffering. One can notice the kind of words used by him here. Therefore, it is said, Duryodhano manyumayo mahadrumaha skandaha karnaha shakunistasya shakhaha dushasanaha pushpaphale samruddhe moolam raja dhritarashtro manishi. Duryodhana is the great tree of wickedness, Karna is the trunk of that tree, Shakuni is the top, and Dushasana are the fruits and flowers. But finally, Dhritarashtra himself is the root of the tree. So in conclusion, Karna was never discriminated on the basis of Varna. Karna had all the opportunities and misused them to satisfy his greed. Karna was extremely jealous of and hated the Pandavas. Karna had even called Draupadi Devi a prostitute and said that it would not matter even if she was brought naked during the gambling incident. Karna has abused Vidura on numerous occasions for being a Shudra, and ultimately Karna favored all Adharmis and himself was one. Therefore, Karna was never any victim of casteism but one of the worst of all Adharmis and an Atatayi. Thank you for watching. Dhanyavada. Shri Krishnarpanamastu.